I am going to call the meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order. And the first item is to do a roll call.
Right, Manager Loaf. Manager Schmaltz.
Here.
Manager Baki.
Here.
Manager Taves. President Anderson.
Here. Good, we have a quorum. We may proceed. The next item is setting of the meeting agenda. And is there any additions? Go ahead.
Yes, I have several, President Anderson. The first is that we need to approve a cash transfer before our normal transfer meeting, which is 2 weeks away. So we need to add that, and I think the quantity is 100,000 from the accountant. Secondly, I'd like to just request that the item number 4B, 2026 budget, which is the discussion item, become discussion/action. In case after some new information is presented, we might want to decide to take a earlier action than September 30th. The third item is that Emily has put together a great chart showing how individual property taxpayers, how their levy charge varies dramatically. And I think the board should see this so we can expect when people call and complain, we can understand why they might be complaining. It shows that, for example, if a 7% levy increase goes out, one person in Washington County might see a 15% increase in their watershed charge. Another person might get a 3% credit. So it's really, and there's a lot of reasons for that, as you mentioned. But when people call in and complain, they just think that we charge them. Obviously, whatever it is, 15 or 20% rather than 7. So anyway, we should just see the chart. I think it'd be good to everybody to be aware of that situation. Well, that should be, I don't know, maybe put that in new business.
No, I think that's all under the budget.
Okay, that's fine.
So we'll add that action and the other discussion under that.
Are you Jim?
Yes.
Hi, Cory, in the office of the Jim.
Okay, and then the new business.
Sorry. Jim C. Schmaltz, this is one of our speakers.
Oh, hi, I'm Katie.
Thank you.
Hi,
That's President Anderson. Nice to meet you.
and you are?
Jim Chapman. The new representative replacing Chris.
Oh, okay, the new member.
He'll start the
23rd.
24th of
Yeah.
September.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, okay,
So it would be nice, I think, maybe after we get past all the boilerplate stuff, and maybe Jim can introduce himself to
Of
the
course.
board, because I don't know anything about you.
yes, we'll do that here in a bit, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I was just getting to the transfer that we need to do, why don't we put that under new business E?
Okay,
Okay. I think we're ready to go now. So let's start with our new business, and we have with us the, you're working on your master's.
I'm working on my PhD.
Okay, oh, your PhD. All right, why don't you introduce yourself? Sure.
Hi, everyone.
Madam
My name-
Chair, I'm-
Yes,
I think we need a vote on the agenda.
yes, I'm sorry, the changes, absolutely.
I'll move that we accept the agenda as I amended it.
Okay, I will, second that. So.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Gonna call Manager Taves in case he showed up. President Anderson.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We are altered. We're back to you.
Yeah, my name's Katie. I'm a PhD student at the University of Michigan, or sorry, Minnesota. I was at the University of Michigan before this. And I've been working on Forest Lake the last couple of years, doing some research on nitrogen cycling, and that's going to ramp up a little bit this summer and next summer. And so it seemed like a good time to share with you guys what I've been up to and what my research focuses on. So I'll give you my broad takeaways before we even start. So takeaway number 1 is that I hope to convince you that nitrogen is in fact important in lakes. The second is that phosphorus management, which I'm sure you all do here, changes nitrogen cycling. And so it's important to pay attention to both. And then finally, that it's good to keep monitoring nitrogen, which you guys do, which is good, but just that you should keep doing it. All right, so Algae need both phosphorus and nitrogen to grow, so they're like any plant. So when you're fertilizing your garden, you have this fertilizer that often has these numbers on it, which refer to nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Just like algae need nitrogen, phosphorus, and other micronutrients to grow. And so what nitrogen does for an algal cell, next slide. It's okay, is algae use it to synthesize proteins, to make chlorophyll. It's used in their DNA and ATP, and it's used in many, many other molecules that they synthesize. In particular, algae can use nitrogen to synthesize cyanotoxins. So there have been several studies that show that additions of nitrogen lead to higher toxicity. So this is an image of Dilacospermum, which is a toxin producing cyanobacteria. I took this picture from a sample off of Forest Lake. And microcystin is one of the toxins they produce. And next slide, you can see that this structure just has a ton of nitrogen in it. And so the more nitrogen that's available to them, the more of these toxins they can produce.
Excuse, just
Yeah,
a quick question.
go ahead.
Just because it'll be a learning.
Yeah, that's
experience
fine.
for all of us. So is that, toxin kind of common, or does the lakes have different types of toxins?
There are a lot of different kinds of toxins. That one is one of the more common ones.
And
And
how aggressive is that versus some of the others?
it's one of the worst ones. There are a few that are worse than that one,
Okay.
but that one's pretty bad.
Okay, and does that stay around, or does it kind of come and go?
I feel like Anne might know more than me about some of this stuff. But
Nope.
okay. Yeah,
I
I'm
know
not.
you're green in your parade, but this is an liver toxin, and some
Yeah.
of the ones you hear about like acutely killing dogs are neurotoxins. So, but in terms of like human consumption, this one can be very, very bad long term for liver damage.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, thanks, Anne.
So it doesn't impact fish or other species in the lake?
There's not a lot known about that toxin particularly in its like what it does in the lake.
Okay.
More, it's been studied from a public health perspective.
Okay,
Is this the same as the blue-green algae?
Yep, it is the
Okay,
same
it
as
is
the blue-green algae.
okay.
Yeah,
All right, got it.
yeah.
it might be for future reference to talking with our clientele
Yeah.
and constituents.
Yeah,
To
blue-green
use
algae
more
is
common
what
language,
people
that would
say.
be a good way to bridge that gap.
For sure.
Question manager.
yeah. Yeah, thank you.
It's a lot easier to understand than that, organic, major molecule.
Mhm. Right, so nitrogen is also important for algal growth. You can actually test very simply which nutrients are controlling algal growth by getting various flasks of lake water and adding different nutrients to them. And so you can add nitrogen, phosphorus, or both. And so if only phosphorus mattered for algal growth, only the flasks that you add phosphorus to would turn green and have a bunch more algal growth in them. Next slide. But I ran this experiment on Forest Lake last year, and one thing that we see is that Forest Lake is what we call co-limited by both nitrogen and phosphorus. And so when you add nitrogen or phosphorus alone, there's no change in the amount of algal growth. But when you add both nutrients at the same time is when you see this large increase in algal growth.
In the late summer.
In the late summer, yeah. Which is when you see the most blue-green algae
Okay.
as well. Next slide. And so that result is not unique to Forest Lake. There are many, many lakes. There have been many studies that study many lakes across the country that show this sort of, if you add phosphorus, you see an increase in algae. If you add nitrogen, you might see an increase in algae, but when you add both is when you see this really major problem. And so that's led to a lot of calls to reduce both phosphorus and nitrogen loading into lakes. Next slide. But what we've learned is that phosphorus can be much easier to manage than nitrogen. And so that's one of the many reasons that phosphorus gets a lot of the attention when it comes to management. And that's just because it's often a point source pollutant. And there are ways, as we learned with the alum treatment or alum treatments that have been done in the region, there are sort of chemical ways to target phosphorus that there aren't for nitrogen. Next slide. But phosphorus and nitrogen cycling are linked biologically. So every plant, every alga has both nitrogen and phosphorus in it. And so when we change phosphorus cycling in the lake through management, we're also changing nitrogen cycling. And so a lot of the success that's attributed to phosphorus management may actually have to do with both nutrients. We just don't study one of them. And so we're not as sure what's happening with nitrogen. Next slide. So alum treatments and alum treatment, the first half of one happened on Forest Lake a couple years ago. The next one will be happening this coming fall. And so what alum treatments do is they increase lake clarity, they decrease internal phosphorus loading, they usually decrease phytoplankton biomass, and they can lead to expansions of submerged aquatic vegetation because when the lake gets clearer, there's more space for plants to grow. Next slide. And so the basic central part of my research is what does all of that do to nitrogen? So when you do this alum treatment and you change phosphorus cycling, how does that change nitrogen cycling? Next slide. And so I've looked at 46 alum treatments that have happened across the 7-county metro area. And what we see is that both phosphorus and nitrogen decrease in the water column after an alum treatment. So on the left, oh, you can go back, that's okay. We have basically a normalized version of total phosphorus. So they're not like true concentration values. And what you see is before alum and after alum, total phosphorus goes down. The same is true for total nitrogen. So we're seeing these two elements track each other in lake cycling. Next slide. So this leads to the question of why, alum grabs phosphorus. It doesn't have much to do with nitrogen. And so why is nitrogen also changing? We think it has something to do with submerged aquatic vegetation. And so a case study that I've sort of pulled out for you guys is Como Lake and Coleman Lake, both in the Twin Cities metro area, had alum treatments that resulted in a 55% reduction in total phosphorus. But the treatment in Como Lake, they had no improvement in clarity and no improvement in how much algae was in the lake. But in Coleman Lake, they saw that improvement in clarity and they saw chlorophyll go down. And so next slide. One major difference in these treatments is how nitrogen responded. So in Como Lake, nitrogen didn't change at all, in Como Lake, whereas in Coleman Lake, both phosphorus and nitrogen decreased. Next slide. And so we think this has something to do with the additional management that was going on at the time. And so at the same time as the alum treatment in Como Lake, they did a large herbicide treatment that resulted in no plants growing in the bottom of the lake. Whereas in Coleman Lake, they coupled it with a carp removal, which led to a huge expansion of aquatic plants. And so we think there's something about this plant response that is mediating how nitrogen changes when you change phosphorus. You can go, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just a couple of questions. So
Yeah.
last year, we had a very large aquatic plant response in the middle basin they treated. Was that showing up and then the test results then for?
So, I don't think you guys do like major plant surveys regularly enough for me to have like quantitative data on here was where all your plants were the year
The
before.
nitrogen side.
Oh, I feel like this is another question that Anne might have a better idea for me because I haven't looked at the data. So your nutrient data from the last couple of years isn't publicly available, or the nitrogen data isn't at least. And so I haven't been able to look at it yet. I'm sure I could ask, but I just haven't asked yet.
Yeah, we can definitely send that to you.
Yeah. That's on me for not asking yet. I just haven't gotten to the analysis stage.
No, there's kind of a gap in getting it on the EQUIS, but we're working through that as well.
Yeah, no worries at all.
So, but what happened is when the phosphorus dropped, the algae went down, obviously, but then the next year, we had an explosion in a kind of a deviation of the original water milfoil, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like $85,000 worth to treat it.
Yeah,
So we treated it and then I think we really nuked it, over nuked it, because this year there was not much of it. Places where I could never get my boat in were right to shoreline.
yeah.
So there was a big dramatic division.
Yeah, so
Look at that.
my question would be, how much did clarity in the lake change
Mhm.
after your alum treatment? Because my recollection is that last year was also a very wet year. And so
It
I
was
don't
a
know
tough
that,
year.
yeah, I don't think that clarity changed that much. And so I don't necessarily know that a change in clarity was responsible for that explosion of Eurasian water milfoil, but I also, plants are so complicated and lakes are so complicated. And so it is very hard to say like, this is why.
Well, I
all
was
those
just thinking
plants
that
grew.
if it's tied to the amount of vegetation, we have a lot of vegetation, then we have none.
Yeah,
So there's gonna be some changes.
it'll definitely be interesting to see. Yeah. Yeah.
And
go
I
ahead.
don't know if you're gonna get to it, but so from a terrestrial standpoint, nitrogen can move both like to the soil and or back to the atmosphere.
Yeah.
What happens in lakes?
The exact same thing. And so that's why nitrogen is really tricky, is that unlike phosphorus, where it's either in the water or it's in the sediment, nitrogen can also be a gas. And so you have to, and it can be many different forms in the water. And so it's tricky to monitor it well, because it can be in so many different forms, doing so many different transformations. And so this year and next year, part of my research is trying to measure some of that flux to the atmosphere through gas.
And so that means high temperatures.
Can you clarify what you mean?
Well, the gas, how do you make it a gas?
Oh, little microbes, they like to use it, yeah, they like to, when the lake goes anoxic, they use nitrate instead of oxygen to do all their various little microbial activities.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, any other questions up to this point?
Are there any, before the meeting, we talked about EWM liking
Yeah,
nitrogen.
yeah.
Are there others in your research that you've identified that like?
So I am a chemist by training, and so I don't know a lot about the functional differences between different species of submerged aquatic vegetation. In general, submerged aquatic vegetation likes nitrogen. It can suck up a lot of nitrogen in the system.
I'm just thinking like different, again, back to terrestrial plants, some
Yeah,
like it or consume a lot.
for
of it,
sure.
and
The same is actually true of algae. So there are different, there's a lot of research on pushing lakes away from cyanobacteria by changing how much nitrogen or phosphorus you have relative to the other. Because similar to plants, they like different ratios of stuff.
So fundamentally, if we just have less of it.
It's generally better, yes.
Just as a suggestion.
Sure.
You met Steve McComas, but,
Mhm.
he's not a medicine man, but he has a lot of practical experience. He's done it, so you might want to talk to him about nitrogen. I'm sure over the
Yeah.
years, he has some thoughts about what's going on.
I,
And without knowing maybe the chemistry behind it, so it'd be worth a call.
yeah, he and I
He-
have chatted about
Oh,
this
you
a
have?
couple
Okay,
times,
okay.
yeah, over the years.
Manager Anderson.
Yes,
We can also, Katie, we can also send you, there was a report that Steve put together about nitrogen in Comfort Lake and how it's related to Eurasian water milfoil there. So
That would be
Um,
really cool. If
that
you-
was done in 2018. It's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Anne.
we'll have to pull that one out of the shelf. I don't remember that. I just remember him saying that we hardly had any.
Oh, he has Shields Lake too.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk
Okay,
about.
just to,
it.
yeah, fly through the last couple slides, which is just that, as you all know, a large expansion of vegetation, while maybe good for sucking up a lot of nutrients, might not be great, so great for recreation. So this is Coleman Lake before alum and after alum, and you can see how just like all of this vegetation has taken over the lake. And so that's just sort of something to think about when you're managing for water quality, right? Is that just because you've really improved how much algae there is in the lake doesn't mean that there won't be secondary effects. There's a really good master's thesis that came out of the U last year about the expansion of vegetation after alum. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so my research that I'm doing on Forest Lake just basically centers on how will the alum treatment change nitrogen availability? And if we see a decrease in nitrogen like we have in many other lakes, why is that decrease happening? So what is driving it? Next slide. So you guys monitor for what's called total Kjeldahl nitrogen. Nitrogen comes in many, many forms. That's just basically a lump sum of those three types of nitrogen. Next slide. Many other groups monitor for total nitrogen, which just also includes nitrate. So nitrate and ammonium are sort of the bioavailable forms. They're the forms that the algae use to grow. And then next slide. But what I get to do is look at all of them individually. So this is what my research allows me to do, is instead of saying, okay, roughly how much is our bulk pool of nitrogen, I can tell you, oh, well, most of your nitrogen is in algal cells, or most of it is nitrate, which is really reactive, or most of it is in dissolved gas, or things like that.
But there's only two forms that really accelerate the growth, right?
There are,
Ammonium and
but
nitrate.
they all cycle between each other. So it could be that you have a lot of particulate nitrogen and then a bunch of that decays and it turns into reactive nitrogen that fuels the algal growth.
Okay.
There's a lot of recycling of nitrogen that happens in lakes. So sometimes you can't measure even if the pool is small, that doesn't mean that the source of it is small. It just means it's getting eaten really fast by the algae. Next slide. So I'm going out monthly this year and next year to look at each of those different types of nitrogen. And then twice a year, we're taking sediment cores to look at what you were asking about those transformations to gas. So one way that nitrogen leaves the system is through denitrification, which is where those reactive forms of nitrogen turn into an inert gas. And so that happens at the sediment at the bottom of the lake. And so I take sediment cores to measure that.
Do we have to, can we use our sediment cores to manage our alum treatment rather than duplicating the cost?
No, it's a different, test analysis.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Ann and I have talked about it a little bit.
okay.
Yeah, President.
Yes.
Does
Go
it
ahead.
change the pH at all like it does on, on the terrestrial? Excess nitrogen?
Does excess nitrogen, oh, that's a great question.
Is it terrestrial nitric oxide?
A really acidic, yeah. I think lakes are really well buffered most of the time, and so it probably doesn't cause too much of a problem. I think in streams is where you start to really get a problem with pH change in nitrogen. I think there's just like too much water.
Is there any analysis being done on that?
I bet someone somewhere has looked into it, if I had
That'd
to
be a
guess.
great question in the
Yeah.
last 10 days.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Next, last slide. Yeah, okay, so, no, that's great. So again, a refresher, nitrogen is important. The phosphorus management that you're doing is probably changing your nitrogen cycling, so I'm very excited to look at how nitrogen is cycling in the lake this year and next year. And finally, just to keep monitoring nitrogen and reporting your results. Next slide, just last slide. So you guys monitor as a reminder for total phosphorus, chlorophyll A, total Caldol nitrogen, and Secchi depth transparency. But then in your annual reports, you just have phosphorus, chlorophyll, and Secchi depth, and the nitrogen data is somewhere. And so I do think like it's a tough one when it comes to communication, right? If people are barely grasping onto phosphorus, trying to add a whole nother thing on.
Well, we all know, I mean, I've been doing sampling on our lake for almost 10 years now,
Yeah.
so I can just. When something changes,
Mhm.
it's illogical sometimes what happens, like you
Yeah.
said, you take out the phosphorus and the Secchi depth gets worse, so.
It's,
very
lakes
frustrating. So
lakes
there's
are
other things
complicated.
going on
There's a lot
with
going
that.
on,
There's a
yeah.
lot going on, we
Uh,
never did know what the mechanisms were and how they relate.
Yeah. I do think nitrogen, like if you're looking for possibly a minor success story, as you reduce phosphorus in a lot of these lakes, you are decreasing the amount of nitrogen. So if you want two graphs that go down, you can have both. I'm sure people might like that. But yes, so keep monitoring nitrogen, report it so that people can see it. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. The last slide is just my contact info. Happy to talk literally anytime.
So with the alum treatments, it's creating that flock and the cells.
Mhm.
What about the nitrogen? Is it just going, do we think it's going into the plants and then being made available if there's more increase in phosphorus coming in? Because over time, that flock will.
Yeah, so one thing that we see that's really interesting is that, so alum treatments tend to like wane in effectiveness over time. And so you do in the broad data set across the metro area, see phosphorus kind of start to climb back up and chlorophyll A starts to climb back up. Nitrogen stays flat. And so it seems to, let's see, how do I explain this without getting really technical? There are certain things about ecosystems that instead of moving like, oh, a little bit more phosphorus, a little bit more phosphorus, a little bit more phosphorus, happen in really sudden changes. It's like you have a clear lake or you have a really algal dominated lake.
But I know, for example, Stephen Kumis talked about the fact that nitrogen is a key driver of how much Eurasian water milfoil you can have, for example. So it must affect different plants differently also.
It probably does. I don't know that there's a
So-
ton of, because nitrogen is really, really, really understudied in lakes. There's not a ton that's known about how it is functionally different
I
for
think it would
different
be sucked up
species.
right away though, as it comes out, but maybe not.
Ag areas.
Huh?
Nitrogen in lakes and rivers would be a big study out in the rural areas.
Mhm. It's really important in streams. So in streams, it can cause like all sorts of issues in
Mhm.
groundwater. And so, yeah, what we think happens is that a lot of it gets sucked up by plants. And if it's not getting sucked up by plants, it's getting denitrified. So there's a lot of things that lead us to believe that denitrification will increase as the lakes clear up. And so we think that maybe like there's kind of a pulse denitrification that's happening and then that gets sustained, which is why the nitrogen sort of stays flat as opposed to climbing back up.
Any further questions?
Well, there's a lot of research on just knowing that the amount of nitrogen per acre in a urban area is many times higher than the rural. Even though this, on a scale standpoint, the rural is larger, but in terms of impact on lake, it's still. It's significant because of just how much people are putting on these days based off of.
Putting on, you mean
Fertilizer.
bonds and so
Correct.
forth? Okay.
Cause it's a thing that will make it green, but also then it's easily washed, moved, across the landscape. Or through the soil profile and, depending on the commission.
But there's fertilizer many years ago was changed to not supposed to have phosphorus in certain
Yeah.
areas. But so even if that's taken out, you still have the nitrogen in there, right? So,
That's what Mike was saying.
yeah, so it's still a big issue, so.
Yeah,
And
So if we're gonna do a campaign, we have a double sword to go with.
well, I always thought, Ann is really new with us, but she's with the firm that we've had for a long time. The engineering firm, and, one of the things I recall from the past is that we were always told that, oh, nitrogen isn't a big issue in our lakes. So that's why it wasn't, to answer your question, that's why it wasn't something that was, on the highest radar to.
And I could tell you all about the history of why that's the case, if
Yeah.
you were curious sometime. Basically, there were some really influential studies in the 80s that just like, they were incredibly helpful. So they changed all sorts of laws. They're part of the reason there's a phosphorus fertilizer ban. But then they were only done on a very specific type of lake in a very specific area. And so since then, there's been a lot of more research done on all different types of lakes. And it turns out there are all different types of nutrients that are important in
Yeah.
different types of lakes.
Yeah, complex,
Yeah.
like our bodies. Well, this has been fascinating. It's been a long time since we've had this kind of a presentation, and it's scientific, of course, but if you're gonna work in the lake area, you've got to understand that it's a dynamic, complex system,
Mhm.
and, you can't always go A to B.
Yeah, everything is connected, and as you said, it's like sometimes you remove the phosphorus and then Seki gets worse, and it's like, well, because there was rain, and
Mhm.
there's just so many interconnected pieces.
Variables, yeah, all the time.
Manager Anderson, may I ask a
Yes,
question?
sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I love this topic, and thank you for
Yeah.
presenting this afternoon or this evening. I was wondering, as we kind of talked about, last year was a tough year for water quality just because it was so wet. And I was wondering if you were thinking about repeating the study that you did last August with the co-limitation again, or
We're collecting that on Wednesday,
oh,
so
perfect. Okay, great.
results soon.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That sounds
it's a
good.
pretty easy one to do, and so we're just gonna do it again, and then depending on funding, I'll try to do it again next year too. It would be interesting to get some seasonal data, but unfortunately, I don't quite have the capacity, because lakes do shift in their nutrient limitation seasonally, but it just seems like when the peak blue algae bloom happens is probably one of the more important times to understand nutrient dynamics.
Interesting.
And
Very
that's when
interesting.
they're around so that they can take advantage of that difference in the ratio, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're very, very well adapted.
Thank you.
We do have, like I said, we do have all that nitrogen data that we can give you, and we
Yeah.
do make a couple comments about, how it is in relation to the ecoregion magnitude, but
I
we've
just figured
had
I'd
kind
grab
of
it from you
discussion.
all
Yeah.
at once, like next year when I'm
Oh,
writing,
perfect.
you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
So, between Mike and Ann, you'll have access to what you need.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having me
Thank
and
you.
for letting me
We're
work on
very
your
pleased
lovely
to have you
lake.
working on our lake, so thank you. So
Absolutely.
it's an interesting lake and it's close
It's a
by the
cool
UN,
lake.
so there's other studies that might want to be done too eventually,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Let me know if you ever do anything with carp.
Well,
Well, you
Mhm.
talked to Blaine and I about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit.
yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, you are free to go, and, we appreciate it again. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is Minnesota Watersheds Annual Award Presentations and Resolutions.
Madam President, managers, this is just, really an FYI item that the notification has come out from Minnesota Watersheds or statewide organization. So staff just earlier today discussed a couple of potential items, one for the our program of the year, and one for the project of the year, so we'll look to get those in by September 5th. Those are the deadlines. We could provide a little bit more information if you want on the 28th, but
Okay, have you thought of which ones? You
Yeah,
might
so-
submit?
just Adam's work on in terms of his community outreach work, in terms of all his community ed programming,
Mhm,
like just the extent of it.
okay,
So, cause it's very voluminous, right? So, and then the project side, I think we were thinking about the County Road 50 ironing and sand filter project, so Lenny was gonna work on writing that up.
Okay.
So,
did you ever resubmit the Bixby Park project? It was presented years ago, maybe 10 years ago already, right after it was done. And, they loved the project, but they didn't feel it had enough history, in order to make a good judgment about whether it was going to be reliable, continue to do that type of impact.
yeah,
So I would suggest that as well, do two.
as I say, I think we can do the
Mhm.
second ones.
But isn't it up for reevaluation in terms of whether we change the media or not? So if you, are we reevaluating every year whether it's working?
Well, we have not done any additional post-construction monitoring, which doesn't get funded by anybody other than the
Mhm.
local taxpayers, we did 3 years afterwards, and so it was all functioning very well. And we do regular inspections, or Lane and staff do, in terms of operation and maintenance,
Mhm,
things like that. We had done at the time some additional, using some of those DIY, no cost Arduino technology pieces to monitor groundwater fluctuation. We were seeing like 10-foot differences, based off of evapotranspiration. So, I mean, we have that information, but there's probably a lot of others. I mean, just anecdotally, I'm sure among many others have observed a lot of additional bird species, particularly cranes and things like that, like those shallower areas and stuff that were constructed as part of
Yeah.
the project.
but you did do that 3 year after the project was completed monitoring, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, because that's our standard to verify to the public that this was a successful project. And that's why we wanted to do it from the beginning.
Mhm.
We don't use computer data it's just input for the project. But, we don't rely on that afterwards. We have people actually monitoring properly and making sure that it's doing its job that it was created for. And I think that's really important. Especially for presentation at the Minnesota watersheds where everybody's there and they can see how our practice is against theirs. Cause we haven't had a project fail,
Right.
so. Except in the beginning, when we did that when we did a Broadway Avenue iron enhanced sand filter when the Broadway was being redone. When we fixed the park, the flooding in the park and all of that, and when it came to, I think the end point is right behind where the White Castle is in Forest Lake. And it was the wrong, we had the right sand mixture because there were tables for that, but the wrong soil. And so we had to bring the University of Minnesota representative in to one of our meetings and talk about that they need to create a guide for what soil should be used when we're putting in those types of projects. And I've never followed up to see if they've actually done it, but I think there is some guidelines now on what type of soil to use along with the sand.
So Emily has shared that we put in actually 2 years, 2016 and 2018 for that project.
Okay, oh, yeah,
And
okay,
then, and then we're only allowed 2 total for one program, one
Sure.
project.
Oh, I see.
2 projects and not the program.
okay. I got you.
Yeah, it's been so long since we were gonna do it, I would suspect getting new data showing that it's still working 10 years later, but it might be more impressive than
Mhm.
going back 5 years
Yeah,
later
I
to,
agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cause that was pretty new technology at the time. So, all right. Next item is Tim's Marina.
Madam President, managers, this is just informational, so if there's been some discussion with we know that this has been, the owner has contacted of course, like the members of the Lake Association, one of our board members, and has presented some information to the city. And so it was requested at the last meeting to bring some information about this, so as of right now, there's been no formal application. And there was some, I just talked with Mike Sandiger, who was present with this as well. And so just today, so he was gonna reach back out to the city of Forest Lake, but I felt that it would be important to be proactive, so both the city and the owner understands what would potentially happen, because if you're talking about just parking on grass, ultimately, I've just observed in other areas, and that can be compacted, mud ridden, and then people wanna then come back and add crushed gravel, which is considered impervious. It would be, some potential issues there, so, but there are some alternatives also about having material where you could place, and maintain it as turf. And so that's an option that provides some stability for parking and things like that, but Mike, did you have any additional information to provide?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I spoke with Abby Whitman from the city of Forest Lake today about Tim's Marina. So with any expansions of slips, the state requires the marina to go through an environmental assessment. And the city is the local government unit in charge of that. So the first step for the potential expansion of Tim's Marina is they'll have to go through that environmental impact study. And they'll have to list, the pros and cons of parking on the grass, or what effects that would have on sedimentation and the shoreline, and then look at the impacts of impervious surfaces such as gravel or asphalt parking lot. Once they have gone through that process and have identified, I should say the watershed district will have a chance to comment on that environmental impact report. And then once that is complete, Tim's Marina will have to go through a conditional use permit again with the city of Forest Lake. So there's multiple opportunities for the district to comment through that process. And then, as Mike said, we're going to work on setting up a meeting with the owners of Tim's Marina, just kind of discuss what could be required by the watershed, and encourage them maybe to implement some cost share or other lake-friendly practices.
Good. I think it's a good idea that you approach them earlier in the process rather than later and wait until they've got a plan already. That's the smart way to do it. I'm glad to hear that. Yes.
Madam President, yes, right. One of the things that we always talk about is that, we want every project to be a successful project.
Mhm.
It's not our objective to come out
Right.
and do a gotcha thing. So,
Mhm.
one other thing, just within the memo itself, just a clarification that I had in there that, the jurisdiction ends at the ordinary high water level, but that's not accurate. Some of the district rules apply below that, so just for the board and for the record, I want to clarify that.
Okay. Thank you, that's important. Okay, Mike S., good luck with that project. I'm sure we can find a way for it to work, but again, it's really important to get there early and talk it through. So thanks for that. Diligence. Appreciate it.
Thank you, President. Yeah, Mike Kinney has also been advocating for us to get in touch with them as early as possible as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, moving on, permit fee structure.
Madam President, managers, we have again, Mike Sandiger here to comment on that. You know, we've been looking at this for a while, and Mike has just undertaken this more diligently. And I sent out this afternoon, and my apologies for the delay. I just wanted, with me being gone last week and then wanting, trying to do some catch up, but I had council review that, but there's no action, it's just a discussion piece, just to set up a process for trying to move forward and with respect to making some adjustments, since over time, more and more levy funds have been used to fund the permitting, when in fact the permit fees were designed to cover that. So we just want to make some adjustments, so you know, those are aligned, you know, with the actual work that's being completed.
Yeah.
So Mike, if you want to do a quick summary, maybe?
Sure. Ann and I have been working on the permit program expenses and revenue side. Really, the goal is to make sure that 100% of private permits are covered by the permittee. And we have been missing a lot of administrative and coordination expenses from staff. We've implemented a system that now captures those costs on our database. However, that requires us to track each individual interaction or time spent with the permittee. So it's quite burdensome administratively. So we are proposing moving over to a flat rate, non-refundable system where the permittee would provide that fee and deposit that's non-refundable, that is based on the expected cost incurred to the district. So we have not finalized that yet. Our current plan would be to present those proposed new rates for triggers at the August 28th board meeting later this month. If they're acceptable to the Board of Managers, we would then publish them for a 45-day comment period, after which we would, if the board so chose to, they could act on the proposed revised rules at the October 23rd board meeting. And really the goal is to make sure the permit program expenses are being covered by the permittees.
Mhm. Well, this is very good news. If this is common practice with every city, every county, you know, anybody who issues permits to do activity, and especially around water. So I always thought we had this, but apparently not. So I'm glad that we're putting it into place. Yes.
Just a question, Mike, we've talked about this before, are we going to do the benchmarking of other watersheds to find out? And that'll be part of the presentation in terms of why we're rationalizing what we're doing?
Yeah, so some of that was done when we did the rule revisions back in 70
Mhm.
or 17 and 18. But it was just more of an informal data gathering. So this, as noted, it is a common format, but at the time, you know, when the rules were initially came into place, now for the district, I guess in 08 or 09, that, you know, there weren't as many permits. We were doing some, you know, 3 to 5 a year, but now we're consistently some, you know, 40 or so. And some of those are, when the developments, they include a bunch of individual properties, so. But from that standpoint then, and as Mike noted, the administrative time, this was never built in, and so it's grown to be quite a large dollar amount in our budget. So this is really just addressing that deficiency and receipt of payment to cover those costs, rather than placing on the burden of existing property tax owners, property taxpayers.
Well, I think for some of our newer people too, just to reiterate, this is a very absolutely necessary part of what we do. Because we're spending all this money to clean up the waters, and if we don't make sure that the new people are adhering to the rules to keep the water clean.
And we're under everything that we do.
Uh-oh, what happened there?
Turn the mic on.
So anyway, so this is really a good thing and we've had this now program for quite a while. And so we're fixing it so that it works the way it's supposed to. And if everybody does what they're supposed to do, according to the rules with whatever project they have, and then they get the bulk of their money back. It's only when, we have to go out and do something that they haven't done. That we have to use whatever escrow or stipend they've left behind, and that's part of the rules too. So just for the benefit.
The other side of that equation in terms of what we do and why we do it is that, you know, since the 1850s, you know, people have been draining wetlands and doing everything that's bad for the water, right? So nothing really started being controlled until the 70s. So while we are trying to stop the future content, you know, that going on in the future, we've got that control with permitting system. Our responsibility is to go back and find the major contributors of phosphorus and fixing those major issues to get, well, for Forest Lake, it was close to 1,000 pounds per year out of the incoming into the lake before we do the island treatment, which you heard about. And it took us about 4 or 5 years to do that. So, so that's a really important thing. We still are looking for good opportunities. We don't work in a lot of small projects, but it's too expensive. We try through diagnostic monitoring and that's trying to find the 20% of the opportunities that give us 80% of the results. Sure. And so you'll learn more about that as we go on, but that's been a very differentiating system for us and not many watersheds are doing this. Actually, I would say almost none. And we've been able to get 5 lakes off the impair list within 10 years.
Well, numerically, they're not officially off.
But they're pretty close. All the lakes have improved. And while Forest Lake wasn't impaired, it was impaired through most of the summer when I moved up here in 2002. Now you'll see the numbers are down around, used to be around 38 or 40 and now, and 44, 47 in the summertime. Now we're running around 30 parts per million of phosphorus. So that's a large, about a 6-foot difference.
Let's.
Yeah, sorry.
You got something?
Just trying to help them get on board here.
No, I know.
Madam
Not
President.
stuff.
Just align with this, so one of the things that I work with staff on and Mike has been taking the lead now is, working on, there's a concern about the rules and its impact, you know, from a business standpoint. So one of the things that I've been advocating for in the St. Anthony Falls Research Center, the Stormwater Research Center at the University of Minnesota has agreed to take on is to study then the impact of erosion sediment control, just from the practices itself, like what is permitting doing from a large aggregated benefit to the water resources? Because there's been a growing impact or pushback about the permitting itself, and we've seen that with some permittees themselves, you know, plus some of our partners. So it's just the start of a longer journey of understanding our water resources, but you know, I've committed to the city staff and the new administrator, you know, that we're pursuing this to have a better understanding, you know, as we move forward with the, and of course, these rule changes are just about the finances. Future rules may incorporate some adjustments in terms of as we get the new numbers in terms of the rainfall data.
Yeah, you know, that data is available though on almost every permit that gets issued, especially developments, because they have to calculate, you know, all of the water that's on the soil now, and our rule basic underpinning of the rules is that you can't add to the downstream of what's there. So it basically means that you have to keep your water on your own property. Whether it's a 1 acre or 5 acre or 50 acre development. So that's the concept.
Right, Madam President, so that's regarding the stormwater rules, so we have the information about the cost benefit on
Yeah.
those pieces, but we're just talking about erosion sediment control.
Yes.
Like the North Shore Trail, for example,
Mhm.
you know, we know that.
Yeah.
The city wanted us to reduce it,
I know.
and then we have the impact, right?
And then what
So,
we said was gonna happen, happened.
right, so that's the research that we're trying to
Yeah.
look into to better understand collectively the value of doing that work,
Mhm.
so.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. Next item under old business, first item under old business. Is the building architect.
Yeah, president manager, so, again, so while there was,
Oh, can you excuse me? I'm sorry, I should not have gone past. The last
Oh, yeah.
item,
We got,
the last item under 3, new business, was supposed to be the cash transfer that
right,
you brought up.
okay. So Tori has been watching the account balances and she caught the fact that, we're running a little low on this one account.
Mhm.
And so after talking with the accountant recommended that we transfer $100,000 over before our normal time, which would be
Sure.
2 weeks from now. It's too late. So,
Yeah.
so they're requesting that we transfer $100,000, which will give us a 50% extra back cushion
From savings
from
to
savings to the
checking
checking
account?
account,
Okay.
right, right.
All right,
So I'd like to make a motion that the board will approve that decision of moving 50,000 from the
100,000.
100,000 from the savings account to checking.
To the
This is
checking.
checking.
Okay, there's the motion. Is there a second? I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, roll call please.
Okay, Manager Schmaltz,
Aye,
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye,
President Anderson.
Tori, does that have to be done tonight or can it be,
It can be done, well, payroll hits tomorrow,
so we should do it
let's do
tonight?
it tonight.
We'll do it tonight after the meeting.
Okay,
I got my computer and my book and that. so-
Okay.
Okay, so if I have any trouble, you can help me.
sounds good.
Okay. Just remind me, I don't.
Yeah,
walk out.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
all right, now we can go to old business. A, building architect.
Yes, Madam President, so managers, so this has been, in for discussion for some years, we've been in this temporary, building for, some 11 years now, and so the board has had this discussion for a while, but finally undertook the initiative to put out an RFP, and this is just for the rendering. We did have some materials, but there were some adjustments that needed to be made before it could be made public, so, thank you, council, for that. So we'll just bring this back on the 28th for, further discussion and action. But overall, again, the intent is that we're paying rent in a facility and a building that doesn't really serve the district. This is an old hair salon. And so ideally, the idea is to get into a building that would be more suitable for the staff and for the mission of the district. So we'll bring this back on the 28th.
Yeah, we have 11 people in this building. We started with 3. We have not been spending a lot of money on facilities, so.
Well, I just wanted
Yeah.
to remind people that we're looking at a pretty unusual opportunity, where we don't have to cough up the money. And working with a builder, commercial builder. And so we've got that to talk to about
Sure.
as well.
We got a
So,
number of options.
well, yeah, we do, but that's part of the discussion is making sure that we talk through that opportunity because I've never heard of it before, but it certainly makes sense. So it's gonna be exciting. Okay, so more to come. The next item, Mike, is B, a program update.
The budget.
Budget.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's just something, there it is, yes. B, under old business, 2026 budget. Steve wanted to add action, to that possible action, but it's meant to be originally a discussion. I know Manager Baki, you're just getting back from your vacation and your travels, so. Probably.
President Anderson, I did
Yes.
view the video, the YouTube video of the meeting and took copious
Oh.
notes. I also met with Tom Furry today to review his take from it. So I feel I am up to speed on what was discussed.
Oh, great.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, let's open the discussion then on the budget. Steve, you had a position that you wanted to present.
Well, I was making sure that Manager Baki is up to speed, man. You know, we have basically two options. There's two scenarios, Dave. We have
Yes.
we have
Yep,
the red
I'm
tab,
very
President
familiar with that,
Yancey.
Steve. Yes.
Yeah, 60%, and then we're looking at a 20% with a couple of increases in the years following. Both of
Yes.
which will pay off the loans we have, et cetera, but it's a question of how the public will react to it. It's probably gonna influence what we decide. So I don't know whether you have any thoughts or comments based upon what you've seen, or if you have any questions, we could try to answer. I could go through a few slides quickly, but if you need that, but
Well, we are gonna talk about having a budget workshop for next week. So we don't have to rush this discussion tonight. We've got until the 30th of September to turn it in, so we gained 2 weeks on what we thought was the right date.
Yes, and I would encourage us to include the other managers as part of that discussion before we take action.
they've been involved in the last meeting. So they went through everything you did. So we're all pretty much up to speed on it. And the question is, it's a little safer, I think, to move ahead with the September 15th levy approval that rather than waiting to September 30th. That's what I wanted to discuss tonight. So.
Well, I agree that we should have all of our board members. This is a big decision that we make, probably the biggest every year. And so we need to make sure that everyone's here. And everybody gets to weigh in on the budget before we approve one.
Right, well, if we don't make a decision tonight, we lose September 15th opportunity. So then we're stuck with September 30th.
Yeah.
So, and there's a risk with September 30th, from our legal counsel who pointed that out last week, that it's a small risk, but if somebody wanted to cause some issues for us, it could possibly be an issue for us to the point where we
Well,
might
not-
even lose the levy.
Not when the report that you have to use, the paperwork that you have to use to submit your levy in Washington County, our biggest county, are all stamped with September 30th.
Right.
So that transition has already happened. What happened is we didn't have the cleanup in the 103D statute that should have happened in 2017. When the
Okay.
date was moved to the 30th, which Chuck tells me originally was the 30th in the 103D.
Emily, do you recall what the date was on the last levy we submitted, paperwork? Was it September 30th? It was?
Yep.
Okay. So she said it's being reviewed again and that September 30th would be on there again, so I guess we're pretty well covered then. You're comfortable with that?
I am.
Okay, that's fine then. I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I don't think we should rush something as
Right.
important as our budget, and again, there's 2 members missing right now. So they need to be in here, they need to have their voice heard. Yes, Mike?
Madam President and managers, I just want to make sure that, the board is aware that from a timeline, so, if. Right now, we also need to put forth a budget number and a levy number for the public hearing. It doesn't lock the board into any specifics that, or in that regard, but it just needs to be published for 2 weeks. Due to the days that the papers are published here locally, that means that, it will be 2 weeks, and then even if we decided tonight. Then we'd go to the paper tomorrow, the soonest we could have a meeting on the, as far as a hearing is September 2nd. So then if we push it back to next week, same thing, it's just one more week, then it's the 9th. In terms of just the hearing, and that's just the hearing, but that would give, I feel, the board a good sense as to where the public is on both the budget and the levy piece. So if, given that we're absent 2 managers tonight, which is unfortunate, but that's what it is. If we do have a workshop next week, and then if we could get one the following week, and then we're at least at the 9th prior to you'll be departed already,
I'll be gone.
right? For the
That's
hearing,
fine, I mean,
right? But then return for the
That
vote.
outline I gave you was having our final budget workshop next week and deciding on a budget. And then that becomes our levy amount, that becomes our budget for the next year by majority vote. And after that, you can start, doing that cycling of the, information
Mhm.
or the papers. And, it brought us to about the 23rd of September for having a, I think that's a Monday, I'm not wrong. But we could have the hearing, and budget discussion. I think it needs to be one, meeting, topic. It can't be part of our normal business because it drags on too much, you know, and this is an important thing and people need to concentrate on that topic. So that works. All the notices get taken care of, all the you're back from your vacation. And, Chris is still on, you know, you're just getting into this, so you don't know anything about it yet, so you're probably gonna wanna sit out on that one. I mean, I would recommend it because you don't know, honestly, the background, but, Chris would still be there, his last day, but he would still be there and could also vote on the, budget. So we should have a full house.
I'm not effective until the 23rd of September or something.
24th.
24th, yeah.
Yeah, so it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't had time to learn about the district and understand where
I've
we're
been
at.
here a long time, but
I know,
not,
yeah,
for sure not this.
we're not saying you're a stranger.
So were you saying we should try to decide tonight? No, you're not saying that, are you?
Well, I was just, if, in order for you to be present at the hearing, it would have been tonight, would have been the, so now the next available date will be the eighth. Well, or, correct, the eighth would be the soonest that we could have the hearing alone, but not necessarily needed to decide on the levy and budget numbers. So, but it
Well, we
was,
should work out the dates on this. I mean, Emily had everything worked out for deciding tonight.
previously, right?
So we need to do this tonight to get the dates in line so we don't get messed up and mess anything.
We have to set a date next Monday or Tuesday for the final budget workshop, so that we can come up with an answer. And then it just gets pushed out. I think, once that's done, the first notice can go in that next week's paper. So we're not too far off from it, but, you'll be back.
So why don't we, since we don't have managers here, why don't we gotta have staff and survey everybody to make sure everybody get to that meeting next
Mhm.
week, right?
Yeah.
know that Tuesday's the Bone Lake pontoon tour.
Oh, is that the 19th? That's good. All right, well then it has to be Monday. Or Wednesday, I suppose. Monday or
Thursday
Wednesday.
or Thursday.
There's no meetings or plans or anything, workshops for the board?
No, we got 2
Well,
weeks.
so we've got every day except, yeah, Tuesday.
I mean, I have plans for board committees.
So can staff then survey?
Yes, absolutely.
And then suppose, once we have that meeting, can we set the other dates then? So we have them?
We will, yes.
I mean, tonight,
The notice dates?
yeah.
Well, the assumption.
Emily
would
can
be-
work on that.
Right now, if we meet next week, we'll get it in by the 22nd. Then it'll be in the papers on the 28th and the 4th,
Mhm.
and then as soon as you could have a hearing, it'd be the following week. It's September 8th, or anytime thereafter. Up until whenever you make a final
Mhm.
decision.
Cause are you gonna let Emily work this out then for us, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, well, no, I'll have Emily and Tori work on just. Polling the board to see when they can meet. But the rest of it, she's already got all that put together,
Mhm.
so. In terms of notice,
Emily's on, right?
yes. Mhm.
So are you
Yep, I'm here.
okay with this, Emily?
What Mike described is accurate. So it's really the board's decision as to how you want to get unified on the numbers, put that out to the public and then hold that hearing probably sooner than later. So I'll get a poll out tomorrow.
Okay,
There's adequate time with those extra 2 weeks. There's no question about anything not meeting a deadline. So. Okay,
hey, Chuck, let me ask Chuck a question. Chuck, you've heard that the Washington County has September 30th on their levy form being done. Do you think that overrides the concern that you had about the 103D taking precedent over the 125 change?
Madam Chair, Manager Schmaltz, as a matter of strict legal reading, I would say no. As a matter of practical import and risk, I would say that's important and useful.
So somebody still might challenge us on that. But then we'd have to wade through how useful that September 30th published date would be. Is that what you're saying in legal terms?
Well, we've reviewed it previously, and you've talked about it a bit here. In 2017, the legislature changed the September 15th date to September 30th for all special taxing districts, which includes watershed districts, in the truth and taxation law. It's our assessment that most likely they neglected to be aware that there's also a date in the watershed law, and that date was not changed at the same time, and it remains September 15th. So again, as a technical legal matter, that date is still in the watershed law, but as a practical matter, the auditors are the ones who will accept and extend your levy for you. And they've affirmed that September 30th is the schedule that they operate on, and that's what they find satisfactory.
Okay, thank you.
And can
I it down tight enough.
And can I add one thing that can come back, if you're interested, can come back at your next meeting, or your first September meeting. We've spoken with Jan Voigt at Minnesota Watersheds about legislation to correct the September 15th date in 103D in the watershed law, change that to September 30th so that it lines up with the truth and taxation law, and we don't have to have this conversation every year, which is a conversation I have with other watershed district clients as well. And Jan advised that under Minnesota Watersheds procedures, the board is meeting in October, and at that time can approve further resolutions to put before the body to vote in December. And she agreed that this would seem an appropriate one because it's a simple correction and it isn't controversial. And so she asked that if you would like to proceed that way, that we just provide a resolution in September, and she can move it forward to the board, and would expect that the board would be perfectly satisfied to put that in December and add it to the resolutions.
Without objection from the board, I would like to direct Mr. Boltman to prepare that for us, the resolution, and Mike, obviously too, your input as far as you want it, and proceed with that. Makes sense.
I support that.
Manager Baki, do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate the final nail in the coffin to close this thing out. Thanks for moving ahead on that for us.
Yeah, thank you.
And so is your motion is that we should simply go straight to Minnesota Watersheds, or would you like to see the resolution at your next meeting.
Yes, if you can have it ready, that would be great.
Very
We
good.
just want to make sure it gets to her before,
The deadline.
before that meeting
Thanks, Chuck.
deadline. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So we're ready to move on to number 5 then, program and project update.
President, yes. So I believe we have Blaine on the line this evening. There he is. Blaine?
Madam President, managers, just wanted to provide our monthly project update to you all. There's a slide deck that was put together for your review. No major updates regarding projects, though I will note we did just receive the 60%, a draft 60% design for the Heath Avenue Iron Enhanced Sand Filter. Staff is currently reviewing that and getting those comments back to EOR. They'll be making edits and then bringing that forward. We'll be sharing that with the city of Wyoming to get their input on the design as well. And then that'll be available for viewing here shortly. We're making progress on a few other projects as well, but things are just slowly creeping ahead on many fronts. So I'd be happy to take any questions that folks might have.
We've got the time. Can you just walk through the highlights with us? We've got our new number here. And I think it would be helpful for him to see. What's that? I'm sorry, what happened?
That we have the slides in the board packet. I was just
Oh, okay.
suggesting that we bring them up. So. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Tori. So we do provide a update on a monthly basis on all the projects that we're implementing or working on. We want to fast forward here to the first project slide. So just a list of the project management, different phases. Here's all the projects that we've implemented in the past decade or so throughout the district, benefiting adjacent water bodies and also downstream water bodies. Move to the next slide. Just the next slide. Just the kind of different phases of the projects that we go through. Phase 1 is planning, then we go into a feasibility study, make sure all our ducks in a row and that the project is a good project to proceed with. Both, can it be accomplished and is it cost effective? If that is approved by the board, then we go into the design phase where we figure out what the project is exactly, get additional ducks in a row. That leads us, after the project is accepted, we then go into the implementation phase, actually construct the project, and after that, after construction, we go through and start our maintenance and operations of that particular project, making sure that it's functioning into the future. So many steps, it takes many years to get some of these projects off the ground based on their complexity and anything that comes up through this process. Next slide, please. One of the larger projects that we're working on right now is to benefit Little Comfort Lake. We'll be taking waters from a wetland area that has high nutrient loading coming down through the wetland. We'll be routing that into an iron enhanced sand filter, which will filter out the water. The iron in the iron enhanced sand filter attaches to any phosphorus in the water column, in the waters that are put through the filter. And trapping those in the iron filings or attached to the iron filings. And then that water will be discharged downstream to Little Comfort Lake. It currently just naturally flows down there. So this will intercept that flow and should result in approximately 80-pound phosphorus reduction per year to Little Comfort Lake, which has benefits to that water body as well as downstream Comfort Lake. We're currently in the design phase of that project. As I mentioned earlier, we just received a draft 60% design, and we're reviewing that, and our partners will be reviewing that as well. We do have a Clean Water Fund for the implementation. We've also gotten other grants as well for the feasibility from One Watershed, One Plan in Lower St. Croix. Those dollars were used for the initial feasibility study for the project. So we're hoping to progress on the design here this year and put this out to bid this winter yet, with hopes of breaking ground next spring, summer of 26. Next slide, please. We've got a grant. Currently, we have a grant to do some stormwater BMPs along the Sunrise River. This would intercept flow coming off of the Goodwin Road area and treat that prior to discharging to the Sunrise River. We do have a grant in place, Bowser Green Infrastructure Grant, on the amount of around $250,000, and we're working with the landowner to get access to that property to implement that project. Next slide, please. We've got working with some landowners in the Moody Lake area. This is part of the Capstone project that we implemented the main parts of it last year. There's some remaining dollars to do some agricultural BMPs. So we're working with a landowner to get to basically rent that property and then convert that agricultural field into a naturalized vegetation, prairie-like vegetation, which will reduce the erosion that's coming out of that area, stabilize the soils, and we'll have approximately a 5-pound phosphorus reduction and some TSS, total suspended solids, or soil will reduce the amount of soils coming down through that drainage as well. That'll benefit Moody Lake, which flows into Bone Lake and then comes down through the channel to Birch, School, a Little Comfort, and eventually Comfort Lake before entering into the Sunrise River. So benefits the upper watershed, which has a trickle-down effect benefiting water quality in Lower Basin as well. So we're well on our way with the rental agreement, and then hope to implement that this fall with some pre-treatment and seeding to establish that prairie habitat. We're also working with some landowner, a landowner in the School Lake area, upstream of School Lake. Those waters flow down through this agricultural area and then eventually find their way to School Lake. So we're working with that landowner to implement some additional BMPs. We've done some work with them already, but there's another few bits of projects or BMPs that could be implemented. We're waiting to work with that landowner, waiting to get that landowner to agree to do additional BMPs. So still working with them and hope to implement some additional BMPs at that location here in the near future. Next slide, please. And then I believe this is our last slide. This is a project that was recently completed, partnership with the city of Forest Lake, small park on North Shore Circle Park, in second basin of Forest Lake, doing some shoreline restoration associated with the park redo and the road work that was done on North Shore Circle Park last year, I believe. So we naturalized the shoreline, stabilized the banks themselves, did a couple of different treatments here, and this can be used once established as a demonstration site for different shoreline restoration techniques that landowners might implement along their shorelines. We're hoping that it acts as a kind of a shining star here for folks. They can see what their shoreline could look like with restoration work that's both ecologically sound and beautiful, as some of these plants come in, lots of flowering plants and whatnot. So we have that aesthetic, a natural aesthetic on the shoreline, but also has, some flowering plants and hopefully appealing to folks as opposed to just turf grass down to the shoreline or down to the lake itself. So we had a small benefit here, phosphorus reduction, but we're working towards our goal of restoring a high percentage of the shorelines around Forest Lake. So this is a good start and a good, potentially a good example of restoration that can be done along the shoreline for other folks.
Blaine,
Yes.
is that picture from last May, obviously, when you just put it in?
That's from this spring. It was just implemented this spring. So this is,
okay.
Yeah, it has grown in quite a bit more than that. Those are after it was first planted, and those plugs that were put in there, native plugs. It has grown up quite a bit. And then there's some additional shrubbery that is installed around the shoreline itself, directly on the shoreline, which is a little difficult to see here. You can kind of see wisps of it here and there, but those should grow into nice shrubs, stabilize that shoreline, make it resistant to wave action, help to reduce the amount of ice heave that they have in that area as well, just by stabilizing those banks.
Yeah, that should be really nice when it's full again. It's great.
Yep. And just another
Wayne, was
note
there-
that,
I can't-
go ahead.
Question, well, I can't remember, was there a rock there before and did we take it out or how did we handle that situation? Or there's no rock now, I guess, is that correct?
I don't believe there was much rock there initially. If there was any, it was incorporated into kind of the recontouring of that bank.
Okay.
But we did not add riprap as far as I recall.
Right.
Aiden
So
Reed,
you probably replace some rocks and put the shrubs in between the rocks and,
that's a pretty common practice, you know, installing riprap and then vegetation in between to lock it in place and further stabilize the shoreline. That root action with those woody plants along the shoreline really stabilizes soils and prevents erosion. I'll
Thank
note
you.
that the city is going to continue to do a little bit of work on this with a concrete pad up at the top on the road shoulder, and then a gravel path down to the lake itself for folks to access. This is commonly used for launching kayaks and canoes and whatnot.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. It's a great project. All of them were. Any questions? Okay, Blaine, thank you very much.
Jim, just a comment, 1 pound of phosphorus can create up to 500 pounds of algae. I don't know whether you've been at Lake Association meetings, but that's a pretty good number to remember. It's pretty impressive. And so 78 pounds, I mean, if you, even 5 pounds in front of your house going from your yard, sure, create a real problem for you.
Okay, next item is the program update permitting inspection protocol.
President Matthews, we're gonna like stand your backhand on this one.
Tori, could you please share the presentation?
Give me just a second.
Thank you. So this presentation was meant to be a look under the hood to look at specifically when we do our inspections and how we do them and how we communicate, but I'll just back up, give a larger view, overview of our permitting program. So we have 3 rules that are commonly triggered. Our stormwater rule, our sediment and erosion control rule, and our buffer rule. These stormwater and buffer rule are best management practices that are required for certain type of work, such as developments. You can stick back at the beginning slide, Tori.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to find it. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't see it.
No, but I'm just giving a broader overview for our new member. But then the sediment and erosion control permit, that kind of requires certain practices to be done during construction to ensure that the construction is done in a way that doesn't harm water quality. So the most common practices associated with that would be a construction driveway, silt fence, biologs, things of that nature to keep soil on site. So you can go to the next slide. So for our permits during the summer months, we do an inspection once per week on all of our active sites. We may do additional site visits as necessary if we're responding to, a concern from a neighbor or following up on a non-compliant item. We conduct all of these inspections on tablets. So while we're in the field, there's a series of 10 questions that we answer. And then if there's any issues, we'll note those and send them out in email form. So up to date this year, we have performed 900 inspections with 95% compliance. So the vast majority of our inspections, we don't find any issues. In general, compliant items may take anywhere from a day to 2 weeks to be corrected. The time frame we allow for that correction is based on the threat they provide to the water quality. So any project on the shoreline is going to have a much shorter time frame for corrective actions. You can go to the next one. So as I said, we now use a digital database to track all of our permits, inspection data, and fees and expenses. One new thing we've implemented this year is now there's an automatic email option. So if we do an inspection of a site and no issues are noted, we can get back to the office and send out that report with one click, which cuts down on a lot of administrative time. Next slide, please. So this is the example inspection report. So on the left is some basic info, what the permit is, who's doing an inspection, what the date is, and then the phase of construction along with some weather info. And then on the right is our 10 questions that we look out when we're out on site. Next slide, please. So one really important thing that we try to do when we're on inspections is when we spot issues, we try to take a photo of that, both to document what the issue is, and then more importantly, so the permit holder can see what issues we're seeing, so they know exactly what we want them to collect. On the right here is an example of Belts Park this summer after some of those big rains we got. You can see the biologs have floated off, and there's issues with the intake. And then the bottom right is actually the discharge for stormwater. So in this case, we asked them to fix the inlet protection, stake down the biologs, and we've seen some improvements on that site. Next slide, please. So as I said, our communications with the permittee holders during inspections is really important, because the purpose of our inspections is to ensure that the permit is in compliance, and that no detrimental effects on water quality are happening. So we require the permittee to correct any issues on site. So that's why it's so important to have those photos and specific notes to help the permittee know what to correct. Next slide. So this is an example of what those communications can look like. So this is a inspection that Victoria did on North Shore Trail. This is a little more intensive than what we would see from a normal inspection report, and that's just due to the size of the permit. You can see usually on a site we can provide, northeast property line, silt fence needs to be repaired, but when we're using with or dealing with a much larger permit like North Shore Trail, we might need to go above and beyond and provide a map with references to where each photo was taken and what we're asking to be done. So as you can see, we had a number of places where we wanted to see more sediment and erosion control, such as biologs. So if you go to the next page, this is the result of our inspections. The city of Forest Lake was very proactive and actually installed our requests later that day. So while we've been dealing with issues on North Shore Trail, we're out there weekly, and when we've noted issues, the city's been quick to respond. It is a very large, complex, ongoing project. So will be out inspecting and looking for any issues, but if board members are out and about or members of the public see anything, we often will go out and do another additional inspection to address those concerns as they happen. I believe that was the last slide. Can you double check, Tori?
It is.
Okay. I guess board members, any questions on the presentation?
One here from Manager Schmalz.
Mike, just to follow up, I know the city was really particular about having to use so many biologs, et cetera. We made some compromises with them, et cetera, trying to work with them. Are you keeping a record of all the mishaps that have occurred already, where we could have used additional protection in many areas? Or we could have a kind of a follow-up meeting with them, showing them why we do this stuff and how or we didn't have it, we had problems with stuff getting into the lake? It would be
So
a good
those,
learning experience, I think, and to justify the value we're putting into this whole thing.
yeah. So we do document each non-compliant item we find, and that's noted in the inspection report. So we have documentation for all of the non-compliant areas we found on North Shore Trail. Those photos and examples we showed, those were sediment and erosion control above and beyond what was required in the permit. Our permit program, we are always able to ask for any additional protection that is needed. And we've been doing that on North Shore Trail, and the city has been very cooperative and responsive to our requests.
Yeah, I know this has been the last couple tough years, because I think at my house, every rain we've had has at least been a ½ inch, and many of them are 2.5 inches. So, you know, it's not a standard kind of biolog situation in many cases if you get a lot of runoff coming down a valley or something. So I can understand that.
There's always unforeseen
Right.
circumstances during construction, and we did try to react to them appropriately and as quickly as possible.
I think the irony of that situation, though, is that because of resistance from the or concerns by the city, our team did basically not do what the rules require in that situation. It's supposed to be 2 biologs going down that type of slope to the water, and so the compromise was just to do 1. And the caution was that you never know when it's gonna rain, and these days when it rains, it's not a drizzle. And that's exactly what happened 4 days later after the project
It's happening
started.
all over the country. Look at Milwaukee.
So the lesson there, you know, isn't to chide them, it's to have people understand why those rules are there. And we try to compromise where we can, but in that case, you know, the prediction was there, and it's just always gonna happen. So anyway, we're glad that Forest Lake is understanding that now, because they lived through it, and will continue to be a good partner. It sounds like their reaction to this was
Been excellent.
fabulous.
Yeah, really great.
So that's really good.
Yeah, their city administrator, Mark Stotts, was out on site and met with Victoria after normal work hours. So the city's going above and beyond, as well as our staff on North Shore Trail.
Fabulous.
That's great. That's what we want to have. So,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Good to hear. I just have one little question, and you were talking about a new add-on to the computerized program that you're using to capture your data and is that the program you're talking about?
Yep, so the database, we use it both for our inspections, our permitting review process, and then also it tracks expenses and fees and deposits. So previously our options were engineer review and inspections. We have now added a staff review and coordination tab to allow us to track those expenses accurately to the correct permit.
And that was Victoria's program, correct, that she created for us?
different?
That program was created by EOR. Victoria has created a great separate program for maintenance declaration inspections.
Well, we need to send a thank you to each of them. I didn't know EOR had done one for us too. That's great.
Yeah, the EOR created the database for us, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Wonderful, thank you. That was a good report. Okay, next item. Are we there already? Really?
Yeah.
6, report of officers and managers. I'll start with Manager Baki.
President Anderson, could we start with the new manager so he could be introduced formally? I didn't quite catch his name.
All right, very good. I'm going to ask you to start that and tell us who you are and what your
Sure.
background is, where you live in the area. Mhm.
Absolutely pre-new manager,
Okay.
Not official until September.
That's right.
right? And I stumbled across the announcement, so I didn't come prepared to talk or
No,
anything. I
no.
just wanted to come check
This is
things
all
out.
about you though. But you know
It's not
too,
about me.
so that- Yeah.
Anyway, my name's Jim Schottmuller and I am a business development vice president for a company that helps manufacturers in the state of Minnesota. It's called Enterprise Minnesota. We're a nonprofit that just works with manufacturers across the state, helps them grow, helps them grow profitably. It's important, helps small manufacturers turn into big manufacturers. Well, that's my day job. I grew up on the river, St. Croix River, and been in love with time on the water and to be around the water. Came to Forest Lake in 2015, live on Lake 3 and love Forest Lake, love the city, love the location, love the amenities, love the lake. As in my interview with the board, they asked if I had an agenda that I was coming to the table with, and I said, I do not. I am just, I'm happy to help out where the need was. So I'm not an expert. I don't come with a watershed degree. But I'm a quick study. I care about our resources, care about the city. And I look forward to helping out wherever I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. None of us are
Yeah,
on
we
the
all
board
started
are,
the same
have,
way.
have,
Right.
yeah, watershed degrees. But if you love water,
Yeah.
which is what you just stated in different ways, that
Yeah.
was wonderful. Yeah, welcome to the club.
So thank you. Nice to meet
Welcome.
you.
Welcome,
Manager Bach.
Jim. I just would like to let you know that I've been on the board since 2021, so they still call me the new guy around here.
Not
Even though I've been
anymore.
on the board years. But
Yeah.
Jim, I would encourage you to ask questions. That's how I've been learning. It's a big learning curve, as you can tell. But your questions bring your perspective, and that helps provide clarity for all of us. And it helps the board move forward as we do this important work. So, don't be afraid to speak up and ask questions about anything, because I think your perspective will help us all. So I just want to share that.
Absolutely.
A couple of things I'd like to share. As Tori has already mentioned, we are having the Bone Lake Boat Tour on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Everybody's invited to attend. I think they would like an RSVP just so we can plan accordingly to make sure we have enough pontoons for everybody. But if you get on Melanie Trail and just drive till you see all the cars parked on the road, that's Patty Ray's house, and that's where we're gathering at 5 o'clock. And we love to show off our beautiful Bone Lake. Jim, you may not know that we were once a grade F lake on the MPCA list of impaired waters, and last year we were delisted, and we are working towards a grade A. We're not quite there yet, but due to the good work of the Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District, great things have happened. And so that's part of a legacy that you can say you're a part of. And that's something I think we're all proud of, is as we work to clean up the water in our district.
Can I ask you a question? I'll ask my first question,
Yes.
and that
Yeah,
is, what made it a grade F lake, and what's changed to take it off the list?
well, I
Everything.
don't want to blame farmers, but farming was a big business in this area decades ago. And so due to the good work of Mike Kinney and others, we've been able to locate where those farms were once located and find where the phosphorus was leaching into our lake. And I think, Mike, wouldn't you agree that was a big part of what helped get the lake cleaned up?
Well, yes, I mean, it's identifying, but it's I guess the really support of the board about trying some new methodologies. While the rest of the state is using something called sub-watershed analysis computer modeling, the board has been supporting doing something, and we did some comparatives back in 2014, 2015, where we did some sequential diagnostic monitoring where we're taking real samples and then being able to sort of leapfrog up and trying to figure out where problems are located. And then we did another study using the computer modeling. The computer model did not find any of the major loading sites into these water bodies. So we've been leading this effort, and we've been trying to get others across the lower St. Croix, but also just across the state to start implementing this other, because the return on investment is quite high. We're doing a small number of projects that have had great returns in terms of improvements. And we've compressed the timeline for getting these lakes to a cleaner state by anywhere from 20 to 50 years. I mean, when I started in this work 25 years ago and talking about TMDLs, total maximum daily load calculations, the assumption was that these were gonna be 50, 75, 100 years before we we're gonna see lakes getting to this.
And they will be if you work on small projects that cost a lot of money, $2,500 a pound.
Yeah,
But if you can find them, what we call the mother loads, we look for gold.
yeah.
You don't just pick it out of the stream, you follow the streams up till you find the mother load, that's what we're looking for.
Wow.
An old dairy farm. That's
It's really high phosphorus levels we're
Oh my
talking about,
God.
right? So you had high phosphorus levels and you were able to bring it down, and
Well,
now,
we found the location where it was high.
yeah,
That was probably 2% of the area.
okay,
It was one wetland.
wow.
Is it right, Mike? Wasn't it only one?
For Moody Lake, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a variety of things. We've done multiple projects around the Bone Lake area. Moody drains into Bone Lake, as you can see from the map up there, but that is all of this area drains through Bone Lake and then down towards Little Comfort and Comfort Lake. So it's a systems approach. It's a scientific and data approach. From that perspective, great collaboration with our partners, the City of Scandia, Lake Association, local residents have all made this happen. So over time, and so yeah, next Tuesday we'll be able to celebrate some of the other work that we're doing in terms of shoreline restoration work. Because we're not quite done with all of it, but the bulk of it, by using some, with that, then we've been able to look at aerial photography, look at changing in landscape, and things like that to be able to identify one of the great examples. And I was talking to we'll get to the Audubon Society later perhaps, but topic, but on Moody or Bone Lake on the northeast quadrant over there was an old dairy farm, and I was talking to a longtime resident that told me Earl Halverson, that said, hey, there used to be this old dairy farm over here, and I went back and looked at the aerial photography in 1864. You can see exactly where the farm is located. And when you look at the landscape, all the manure was draining into the wetland. So Blaine and company went out there, took core samples and verified the amount of the material in there, and it was still, even though all of the buildings were gone, there's no remnant of the farm. The only thing left was the manure in the wetland.
And
It's still draining,
every time it rained, out it comes.
still draining into the lake. And so, and there were other sites. We've done more of these around the district, and we have one more to go. Where presently we've received roughly $2.4 million to acquire property south of Bone Lake. And there's an old farmstead there with another similar site that we are looking to complete sometime in the future once we.
Interesting.
Every lake we have, we do through public outreach, we have a summary sheet of what the problem was, how much we take it out, all the projects, the costs and cost per pound. Could Emily send him one of those charts for each of our 4 lakes or 5 lakes?
Sure, well, there's tons of information on our website
Right.
too, but yes.
Okay.
Well,
But I mean, it'd be interesting for you to,
Yeah,
and you're
for
on
sure.
Forest Lake, so
Yeah.
you'll see what was going on Forest Lake.
Right.
So,
Sorry to interrupt.
no, it's
No
good.
problem, Jim. I'm glad you asked the question because there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes. And, you know, I think part of our, as board member, is also to be active in our community. We have just 80 folks who live around Bone Lake, so we're not as big as Forest Lake, but we have a community here of people that we're constantly reaching out to and trying to enhance their understanding of how they individually impact the lake, whether it's what they're putting on their yard or dumping leaves in the wetland across the road. You know, these are things we can kind of reach out to people and say, hey, you know, this is impacting the lake. Let's work together. So, and I just want one last thing. Tom Furry does our Secchi dish measures on the clarity of the water, and we continue to improve. He's got some new numbers to share, and we're getting even better than last year. So I'll end with that.
Okay, I will touch base. I've been here forever, since before the beginning. And so I'll give you my background too and perspective on where we've been and where we're at. It's exciting. Okay, well, I just have something very exciting to share, which I found out just today. I'll let Mike talk about it. But are we now the owners of the shallow pond?
Madam President, managers, not official,
No.
per our watershed management plan. We have a number of steps, and Blaine, it's on page 77, so I'll send something over to you to. Okay, so I'll send them a note and send to the representative. So we met today with 2 members, board members of the Wild Rivers Audubon Society organization, so that has had that property since that neighboring area was developed back in, I think in the late 70s is my understanding. So, but in regard, they were looking for a permanent home with one that could provide some additional protection long term. But then, so they're very excited. They realize that while they initially approached the city of Wyoming, that the watershed district was a much better place, a home for the property. And so they were also very excited to hear about our Greenbelt corridor work. And so they're going to put together a letter of support that we can share further with the committee. We are going to the state capitol on the 28th of this month for a presentation on, we've got one request for $3.3 million in the morning of that day, another one in the afternoon for about 1.4 for habitat improvement on the Bone Lake South property. That
For Lizard Sam?
correct.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that would be really a great kickoff to that potential overall project. And Blaine had a great suggestion that maybe we'll just time it in such that you know, if we get approved for some of this, that we can wait to make the transfers and that could be the first property transferred underneath that program, and then be the sort of the keystone. But the other piece that we really want to articulate to the committee as they consider this request is that there's a lot of non-consumptive use for wildlife. You know, that it's not simply people that are out there hunting, because some of the concerns were that the city of Wyoming and Forest Lake don't allow gun hunting. And, you know, so for the.
They're not out there doing that now though, are they? I don't think. Hunting?
I wake up every morning with gunshots. And
Well, not over by Shallow Pond though.
no.
Yeah.
Just on Forest Lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so out in those areas.
How many acres is that totally?
67 or 72.
Yeah, it's large. It's right on the Sunrise River, just southeast of Comfort Lake. But it's on the trajectory, it's on that path through the Sunrise, and it's been around there for a long time. The Audubon took over, you know, probably, I don't think it was as early as the late 70s, but I think it was probably in the 80s, was what I remember. And the person that owned it, it's just a wetland really that holds water.
Hmm.
And so, the people that owned it grew tired of it for whatever reason, and the Audubon Society bought it from them. I think part of it was just because of tax reasons. I think part of it was probably donated. But it's a beautiful, big piece of natural conditions that has not been damaged in all these years. So just looking at it is beautiful. Our Bixby Park area too is the same way. As you're turning to go south on 35
Mhm.
from Highway 8, that big wetland that's over to your left.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, that's where, one of our big projects is.
Hmm.
It's treating the water, taming the water before it comes down at sunrise to Big Trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, so you learn all this stuff, but it's, it was a big deal. We've been talking about it for a while, the approach to the city, as Mike said, and city decided that, and they knew right away that this is my city, this is Wyoming, that's what I live in. Well, on Comfort, but anyway, so we've been hoping that the city made the decision that the district should have it, and that's what happened, so.
Wow.
Very exciting, and that happened today.
Wow.
And then, for those of you that are close enough, I'm gonna get this picture over to Adam so that he, can send it out to everybody. This is just so unbelievably unique. This is apparently a colony of tiny little, it's called zoats, but it looks like a brain.
Looks like a bunch of baby rabbits.
It's
in
a,
nest.
it's a brain. These little sections there are all blobbed together. And if you touch it, a section will break off and it'll go scurrying in by the cattails. And then it comes back and reconnects to this
Wow.
master thing. It's just the weirdest thing. And,
Gonna take over.
no, actually, the rain broke it apart, so it's, this one's gone, there's others, but this is so unusual, but apparently, one of our people has had, bryozoans. Do you know, have you heard that, Anne?
Yeah,
Is she
they're
still-
really cool and they're totally
Yeah.
benign. So
Yes.
they're good.
They're fascinating. Anyway, GP Chat on Google said that it's a sign of cleaner water. Is that
Hmm.
true?
Yeah, it could be a sign of cleaner water.
Well, there you are. So,
It's not a
I'm telling
universal
you.
sign, so I don't think everyone's gonna get them, but
It-
they are really
well,
cool to
look-
see.
it was shocking when I first saw it.
Hmm.
You just don't know where that came from, but anyway, so that's my entertainment for the night. Anything else? From anyone?
I don't think Manager Schmaltz has seen his updates.
Oh, I'm sorry, Manager Small.
Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you on. We got plenty of work to do, so it sounds like you're an energetic person, which is good. We moved on to Forest Lake 1 in 2002. And in 2015, you joined, you missed all the bad stuff. When I moved up here in the summertime, July and August, if you wanted to go swimming, you had to pretty much go out in the middle of the lake and swim. Because if the wind was blowing your direction, it was just green on your shoreline. It's really bad. So now that's, like I say, the ratings were like 44, 45, and the impaired is 40. Now we're down to 30, so we don't have those. We still have outbreaks like that, but not like we used to have. So things are getting better. And I joined in 2007 or so, I think, had a couple of years with the Lake Association. In fact, I'm still on the Lake Association. And I had an agenda when I came because I was looking for money.
Oh.
We were working with the city, and the Lake Association could only get 30 or 40,000 a year with dues. City, we got them to put up 65, which we're still putting up. But as you'll see, that's nothing compared to what we have to do to spend money. So I found out the watershed district was around, and you can probably remember when I went to every meeting for a year to find out that you guys were real. And then I made a presentation and found out that you weren't spending any money on Forest Lake. So I
Well,
joined.
not for the harvesting.
No.
That's against our ethos.
So it's a good decision, and it's a very productive organization, and I think we've done some good things, and hopefully we can continue. We're getting into flood work now, so.
Okay.
Welcome aboard again. Good to have you here.
Nice to have you.
It's something you get excited about, as you can see.
Right, right. Especially you can tout your successes and that is.
It was funny
That's exciting.
because it was funny when you said that you got to the economic development group that, I was gonna do that. I had a choice of what to do to volunteer. And one of my things was to work with, I come out of a 3M company and ran a lot of small businesses and that. So I was gonna work with small businesses and help them as a volunteer. And that sounds like what you're doing.
It's not a volunteer, but
It's
it,
not, okay.
it is nonprofit, but it's
It's
a.
nonprofit, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It
But you
was-
must have volunteers working for you, or don't you?
No.
No, that's all,
No,
okay.
so
All
it's just a self-sustaining nonprofit. We don't ask for money.
Okay, gotcha.
We just,
Still good work though.
yeah, it's
It's
fee
still
for
good.
service consulting.
Right.
Thank you. We'll get into deep
You bet.
discussions later. So thanks, guys. And thank you, Manager Blackie. Take your input there. Was helpful. Next item is report of, summary and approval of board direction, excuse me. Mr. Holtman, anything?
Madam Chair, I have no items of board direction.
Thank you. All right, you know what's next? Motion to
I'll
adjourn.
move that we adjourn.
Thank you.
I will
And
second
Bobby?
that motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Good to
night.
have you back, Dave.
Good to be back. Thanks.
Good night.